By day, she saves lives. By night, she creates them. No one knows the truth yet. In the heart of a bustling hospital, a painting worth millions hangs in silence. Powerful. Personal. Anonymous. But whispers are growing louder. Clues are slipping through the cracks. And the life she's built on secrecy is about to ignite. What if hiding who you are means losing everything? Keep watching. Her double life is one breath away from unraveling. The polished marble floors of St. Grace Metropolitan Hospital gleamed under the morning light, casting reflections like broken mirrors, fragments of lives being stitched back together one heartbeat at a time. Dr. Ivy Quinn stood motionless in the grand lobby, her white coat pristine, her ID badge gleaming against her chest. Resident physician, internal medicine. 29. Disciplined. Composed. The daughter of legends. And today, the hospital unveiled something new, something that pulsed with every secret she had ever buried. Across from her, mounted on the main atrium wall, hung a painting. Not just any painting. Her painting. A 5-foot canvas of vivid crimson and piercing cobalt, tangled brushstrokes that screamed with both pain and release. It was the centerpiece of healing through art, a new initiative to blend visual art with medicine, to humanize the sterile, as the chief of staff so eloquently put it. The plaque beneath the frame read, Aurora Night. Untitled. Anonymous donation. No one clapped harder than Ivy when the veil dropped. No one felt sicker. You okay? A nurse asked gently as she passed, noticing Ivy's pale face. Fine, Ivy murmured, forcing a smile. Just taking it all in. No one suspected a thing. Because Dr. Ivy Quinn was the perfect resident. Top of her class. Calm under pressure. The daughter of Dr. Evelyn Quinn, cardiothoracic icon, and Dr. Charles Quinn, the iron-fisted neurosurgeon who spoke more with his silence than his words. But when night fell and the oars darkened, Ivy vanished. An Aurora night came alive. Inside a dimly lit loft in Soho, Aurora painted like her veins were filled with fire. She was chaos and color and freedom. Her work sold for millions. Her name was whispered in gallery circles and hailed in critics' columns as the enigma of modern expressionism. But no one had ever seen her face. Not even Marcus Hale, the agent who brokered her success. She wasn't just hiding from the world. She was hiding from herself. And now, her two lives, so carefully separated, were staring each other down in the same room. Her hands trembled inside her coat pockets. Not from fear. From guilt. From longing. From the pressure of holding up a life sculpted by everyone but her. The chief of staff raised his glass. To Aurora Knight, whoever she may be. Your art heals more than medicine ever could. A soft ripple of laughter passed through the room. Ivy's gaze never left the painting. It felt like it was watching her back. She leaned closer, just enough to whisper, I'm right here. The applause still echoed in her ears as Ivy stepped into the elevator, heart pounding harder than it should. The doors slid shut. The mirrored walls caught her reflection, white coat, tired eyes, mask of control. She exhaled and pressed her forehead against the cool steel. And just like that, memory crashed in, sharp, vivid, merciless. She was 8 when her father handed her a scalpel. Steady hands, Ivy, he said, holding up the orange as if it were a patient's heart. Precision matters. Her fingers trembled as the blade touched peel. Don't look at it, he added. Feel it. Trust your hand. Not your fear. She sliced too deep. Juice spilled onto the counter. His silence stung more than words ever could. By 11, she wasn't going to summer camps. She was shadowing surgeries. By 13, she could recite the Krebs cycle backward and forward. Birthdays meant anatomy books. Weekends meant mock MCATs. Her mother's praise came in exact doses, when she earned them. Perfection is a habit, Dr. Evelyn Quinn often said, arms crossed, gaze sharp. And habits are choices. But Ivy's choices had always been made for her. She was 15 when she first picked up a brush. It was a friend's birthday party. There was a small easel, a tray of acrylics, a blank canvas. She had never known color could breathe. She had never known silence could be beautiful. By 17, she had a hidden sketchbook under her mattress, full of surreal faces and fractured emotions. She painted in the dead of night, when the house was asleep, the air still and honest. And when she submitted a piece to the National Teen Art Showcase under the name Aurora L., she never expected to win. Top prize, the email read, "Your work is haunting. Please consider a full scholarship offer from the New York School of the Arts." She stared at the screen for a long time. Then walked downstairs. They were sitting at the kitchen table, her father reading patient files, her mother grading med school essays. She held the letter in both hands. "I got in," she said, voice trembling. "I got a full scholarship. For art." Silence. A beat. 2. Then her mother, "That's not funny." Her father didn't even look up. "You are about to enter school at Columbia next month. Focus on real goals." "But this is real," Ivy insisted, her voice cracking. "It's what I love." Her mother cut in, "Ivy, this phase ends now. We didn't raise you to throw your life away chasing colors." Her heart shattered in places paint could never reach. And so, one life ended, and another began. She burned the acceptance letter. She packed her bags for medical school. But that night, at 2:17 a.m., she opened her laptop, created a new email address, and wrote to Marcus Hale, a gallery owner. She signed the email with a name she had whispered to herself many nights before, the version of her that painted without apology. Aurora Knight. The reply came 3 days later. "Aurora, your message was the strangest pitch I've ever received. No resume, no references. Just emotion. Send me something real. Marcus Hale, Hale Finch Gallery." Ivy stared at the screen, heart hammering. That night, she pulled out the Quiet Rebellion, scanned it, and attached it to her reply with trembling hands. She didn't sign off with "thank you." She signed off with "please." Weeks passed. She almost gave up. Then came the second email. It's raw. Untamed. Devastating. "You're in." Her world cracked open like wet paint on canvas. She registered her pseudonym officially, Aurora Knight, a name she chose because it felt both strong and invisible. Aurora, like the dawn she never saw after sleepless nights. Night, like the armor she wore just to survive. She gave Marcus only one rule. Total anonymity. No photos. No interviews. "I will not appear in person. Ever." Marcus didn't argue. "Fine. Let them chase the mystery. Mystique sells." And so began the double life. By day, she endured 12-hour shifts, learned to listen to heart murmurs, and memorized drug interactions. By night, she came alive. She would return to her tiny off-campus apartment, scrub her hands of blood and antiseptic, and pick up her brushes. Paint was her oxygen. Her rebellion. Her therapy. Her canvases began to take on a new intensity, vivid, layered, haunted by the pressure of being two people in one fragile body. One piece. Then another. Then another. In the second year of med school, she sent Marcus a painting titled The Dissection of a Dream. It sold within 2 days for $180,000. She stared at the transfer in her bank account for a full 10 minutes, numb. Not because of the number. Because someone out there saw her pain and valued it. "You're the real thing," Marcus told her over the phone that night. His voice was low, reverent. "You've got collectors lining up, Aurora. But we have to be smart. People are already asking who you are." "Let them," she said. "They won't find me." At school, she was a rising star. Dr. Ivy Quinn, always composed, always prepared, always one step ahead. Her professors praised her. Patients adored her. Even her parents, though forever withholding, occasionally allowed a flicker of pride. No one knew that the girl who was acing anatomy exams had painted Mother in Pieces, a work described by the New York Times as a stunning psychological autopsy of maternal control. The double life was exhausting. But it was the only way she could breathe. In the hospital, she stitched wounds with a calm hand. At home, she spilled her own open on canvas. One world demanded perfection. The other fed on chaos. And both, somehow, needed her to survive. At the end of her third year, Marcus called her at 1 a.m. "Aurora, Sotheby's just contacted me. They want one of your pieces for the fall contemporary." Ivy pressed a hand to her forehead, dizzy. "Which one?" "The silent artery. The red one. You remember." She closed her eyes. That painting had been born after a failed intubation attempt. A child had nearly died on her shift. She remembered crying onto the canvas. Literally. That piece sold for $720,000. She didn't tell a soul. Not her classmates. Not her professors. And definitely not her parents. But she kept painting. She couldn't stop. Because every night, Aurora Night reminded Ivy Quinn of who she really was, beneath the coat, beneath the expectations, beneath the name. A girl who still believed in colors. The painting still hung in the atrium, bold and defiant, like a fire in the middle of white marble and antiseptic air. It had only been 3 days since the unveiling. But Ivy had checked the plaque at least 12 times, each time expecting the name underneath to have changed from Aurora Night to Dr. Ivy Quinn. So far, it hadn't. But that morning, her phone buzzed, 3 sharp vibrations. "Marcus." She stepped into the stairwell between rotations, heart already sinking. "What is it?" she whispered. His voice was tight. "We have a problem." "How bad?" New York Times. Investigative feature. "They are publishing in 3 days." She froze. "What?" "They say they've connected the dots. Your shifts. Your art style. Hell, one of them even noticed the way you sign surgical notes. It mirrors your brushstrokes." Ivy's chest tightened. "I've been careful. So careful. Not careful enough." He sighed. "They don't have solid proof. But they're going to run it anyway." The hidden face of Aurora Night. That's the headline. She slid down against the wall, scrubs wrinkling, heart in free fall. "If they publish this, it's over," Marcus finished. The anonymity. The illusion. Everything. That night, Ivy stood alone in the atrium again. The hospital was quieter after dark. Still. The kind of still that makes truth echo louder. She stared at the painting. $2 million. That's what Marcus had said it was worth now. She had donated it anonymously. A silent tribute. Her way of giving something back. No one had questioned it. Until now. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Beautiful, isn't it? Said Dr. Chen, a senior attending, stepping beside her. Ivy stiffened. Yeah. It is. Dr. Chen studied the piece, her eyes narrowed, not in critique, but familiarity. There's a tension in the brushwork, she murmured. Controlled chaos. It reminds me of your stitching technique. Especially under pressure. Ivy forced a laugh. That's a stretch, don't you think? Dr. Chen didn't smile. Just said, maybe. Then walked away. The next morning, Ivy opened her locker to find an envelope with no name. Inside, a printed article draft. Watermarked across the top, NYT, confidential. The headline stared at her like a loaded gun. Aurora Knight, the artist who hides behind a scalpel. She turned the page. Photo comparisons. Speculative analysis. Even an anonymous quote. She disappears during major shows. Her hospital shifts always line up with major gaps in the art scene. No one's ever seen them in the same room. I'm a rumor, she thought, breath shallow. But a dangerously convincing one. That night, her phone buzzed again. Marcus. They're offering a deal, he said. An exclusive reveal. Controlled release. Front cover. No exposé. You tell your story on your terms. Ivy didn't answer. He continued. Or we let the story break without you. And risk everything unraveling. She walked to her studio, her sanctuary, brushes still damp from last night. The half-finished canvas stared at her, a woman with two faces, one fading into the other. She touched the edge with shaking fingers. I'm not ready, she whispered. Marcus paused. You've lived in the shadows for 7 years, Ivy. Maybe it's time. She didn't hang up. But she didn't say yes. Not yet. The studio was dark except for the single bulb above her easel. Ivy sat on the paint-splattered floor, legs drawn to her chest, staring at the canvas like it had all the answers. But tonight, it gave her nothing. The phone lay silent beside her, screen dark, no more calls. No more ultimatums. Just silence. The kind that made you hear every thought too clearly. What happens if they find out? She whispered into the air, voice brittle. She didn't need an answer. She knew. Her father's voice, sharp and distant. We don't play games with reputation, Ivy. Her mother's disappointment. How long have you been lying to us? She pictured the Board of Ethics at St. Grace. Violation of institutional image. Conflict of interest. Dual identity may compromise trust with patients. Even if she kept her license, she might never scrub in again. And worse than any of that, they would no longer see her as one of them. She looked down at her hands. Calloused fingers from the brush. Steady fingers from the scalpel. Both belonged to her. Yet somehow, she had never felt whole. She stood and walked to the mirror above the sink. No coat. No makeup. No mask. Just Ivy. Tired. Splintered. A girl who once dreamed in cobalt blue and ended up drowning in white. I can't keep doing this, she said aloud. Her voice cracked. I can't keep erasing half of myself, just to make the other half acceptable. The studio lights flickered, old wiring, cheap bulbs, but it felt symbolic. She reached for a brush. Paused. Then clenched it tighter. BZZZZ. The phone vibrated. A new message. From Marcus. They moved the article up. 48 hours. Ivy stared at the screen. Then typed. Paused. Deleted. She left the studio and walked 5 blocks to the hospital in the freezing night, wind biting at her skin like truth she couldn't escape. The lobby was empty except for the security guard and the painting. Her painting. She sat on the bench across from it, wrapped her arms around herself, and stared until her eyes burned. What if I didn't have to choose? She whispered. What if I was never meant to be only one thing? The words left her mouth like a secret she hadn't dared to believe. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a world where she didn't have to hide. And that thought was terrifying. And beautiful. 3:12 a.m. Code Blue, Pediatric Ward. Room 409. Ivy didn't think. She ran. Barefoot in her head, barefoot in her soul, but in that moment, only the doctor inside her was allowed to speak. The boy was no older than 6. Pale. Wheezing. Skin blotched with hives blooming across his neck and arms. Anaphylaxis, a nurse shouted, already prepping the epinephrine. Dose. 0.15 milligrams IM. Ivy responded instantly, voice steady, eyes locked on the boy's terrified face. The mother was screaming something in Spanish. The child convulsed slightly, his breaths short and rapid. The room smelled like fear and latex and hospital soap. Ivy dropped to her knees, cradled the boy's head in one hand and whispered, soft, instinctive. I've got you. Breathe. Stay with me. She injected the epinephrine. Counted to 10. Waited. His breathing slowed. Not perfect, but better. The storm was easing. He blinked up at her with eyes full of tears and quiet trust. 10 minutes later, in the hallway, the boy's mother found her. Her mascara was streaked. Her hands shook. But she clutched Ivy's arms like she was the last thing holding her together. You didn't just save him, the woman said in a thick accent. You held him. You were kind. Ivy opened her mouth to respond. Nothing came out. The woman smiled through tears. I've seen many doctors. Cold. Fast. Efficient. But you. She placed her palm over Ivy's heart. You treated him with this. Ivy stood there long after the mother left. Frozen. Shaken. Transformed. She wasn't crying, but something inside her was shifting. Rewiring. Collapsing and rebuilding all at once. For years, she believed she wore the coat for them. For her parents. For expectations. For fear of losing love. But in that moment, in that hallway, at 3:37 a.m., she realized something else entirely. She hadn't become a doctor instead of an artist. She had become a doctor because she was one. The diagnosis. The subtle patterns. The empathy beneath the protocols. Her instincts came from the same place as her art. Not from rules. From observation. From feeling. She walked back to the studio before sunrise. This time, not to paint away her pain, but to capture something else. She unrolled a blank canvas, dipped her fingers directly into the paint, red, like life, and pressed her palm in the center. Then whispered into the quiet. I don't have to choose. The request was simple. A single email to her supervisor at St. Grace. I need the night off. Personal emergency. She hovered over the send button for a full minute. Her thumb trembled. Ivy Quinn had never missed a shift. Never asked for a single favor. This would be the first, and possibly the last. She hit send. The weight in her chest didn't disappear. But for the first time in years, it shifted. That afternoon, she sent 2 handwritten invitations. One addressed to Dr. Charles Quinn. The other to Dr. Evelyn Quinn. No message. No explanation. Just an embossed envelope bearing a seal they would recognize soon enough. The Metropolitan Museum of Art. As evening fell, Ivy stood behind the velvet curtain of the museum's west wing. Her palms were sweating inside her gloves. Her breath came in shallow waves. On the other side of the curtain, critics, collectors, curators, and strangers. And somewhere near the front, her mother. Her father. She hadn't seen them enter. But she felt them. Like gravity. Marcus approached from the side, expression unreadable. Last chance to back out. Ivy exhaled through her nose. I'm done hiding. He gave a small nod. Then let's burn the mask together. He stepped onto the stage, cleared his throat as the lights dimmed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight for a once-in-a-generation unveiling. The newest and perhaps most personal piece by the elusive genius herself, Aurora Knight. The crowd stirred. But tonight is different. Marcus's voice was calm, steady. Tonight, she's ready to meet you. Gasps. Whispers. Ivy felt her heart slam against her ribs. Her knees wavered. Not yet, not yet. The spotlight shifted. Marcus stepped aside. The curtain lifted. And behind it, centered under golden light, hung the painting titled Daughter of Medicine. A haunting portrait. A girl in a surgical gown, surrounded by arteries blooming into vines. One hand held a scalpel. The other, a brush. Her face was fractured in two. Her face. The crowd was silent. Then came her voice. Clear. Quiet. Unshakable. My name. Her mother's head turned sharply toward the sound. Her father straightened. Ivy stepped onto the stage, light washing over her, no coat, no mask, no pretense. Just her. My name is Ivy Quinn. Beat. And I am Aurora Knight. The air left the room like a single held breath. Then, explosion. Gasps. Shouts. A dozen phones raised in unison. Flashbulbs ignited like gunfire. Holy shit, it's her. She's been hiding in plain sight. That's the resident from St. Grace. But Ivy didn't flinch. Her eyes were locked on two people. Dr. Evelyn Quinn stood stone still, lips parted, eyes wet, but not blinking. Dr. Charles Quinn didn't move. His arms remained crossed, but his jaw clenched so tightly it looked painful. Ivy took one step closer, ignoring the noise. I know this isn't what you wanted. Her voice shook now. Just barely. I know I lied. I know I lived a life you didn't understand. But I couldn't be just one thing. Her gaze swept the room. I wasn't built to be either or. I had to become both, to survive. The silence from her parents was deafening. But Ivy kept standing. She had never felt taller. The gallery had emptied. The murmurs, the gasps, the questions. All dissolved into silence. But the tension between Ivy and her parents. It only just began. They stood in one of the museum's side halls, far from the glittering chandeliers and champagne glasses. The dim light above flickered faintly. Ivy faced them, hands trembling at her sides. Her mother was the first to speak. You have a great fortune that we do not know about. It wasn't about the money. No, her mother cut in, sharper now. Of course not. It was about secrets. You had an entire life I knew nothing about. I gave up everything to raise a daughter who what? Ivy's voice cracked. Who didn't follow your blueprint? Who found a way to breathe in a world that was suffocating her? Her father stepped forward. This ends now. His tone was calm. Deadly. You're still under contract at St. Grace. A resident. You can't sell your work to the same institution employing you. It's a conflict of interest. I didn't sell it, Ivy shot back. I donated the painting. Anonymously. He ignored her. I'll speak to the board. Withdraw our bid. We won't be part of this circus. Of course, she said bitterly. Because heaven forbid your reputation gets tied to your daughter's truth. His jaw clenched. You are not a child anymore, Ivy. But clearly, you still crave attention like one. Silence fell. Thick. Ugly. Then, softer. Dad? He didn't look at her. Just turned away, as if even the sight of her was too much. Her mother stayed. But she looked lost. Eyes darting between the portraits, her fingers fiddling with her wedding band. I used to think I knew every part of you, Evelyn said quietly. You knew the part you wanted to see, Ivy replied. No, her mother said, voice rising. I knew the girl who color-coded her textbooks. Who practiced sutures on orange peels every weekend. The girl who never cried when things got hard. The one who wanted to make us proud. I still do. Ivy stepped closer. But I wanted to make myself proud, too. A pause. Her mother studied her face, her voice quieter again. Why didn't you tell us? Ivy's breath caught. The real question. The one that hurt the most. Because I knew you'd try to fix it. Control it. Or kill it. And it was the only thing I had that belonged just to me. Her mother said nothing. But something in her face shifted, just barely. A flicker. Not of agreement, but of realization. For the first time in years, Evelyn Quinn listened without interrupting. Behind them, Marcus approached quietly. They're asking if you'd like to say a few words to the press, Ivy. She didn't answer. She was still staring at her parents. Still a little girl waiting to be seen. Dr. Charles Quinn had his back to them. He spoke without turning. You lied to us. I survived, Ivy said softly. There's a difference. The next morning, the museum was quiet. The exhibit hall hadn't opened yet, but the lights had already been turned on. Ivy stood alone in front of Daughter of Medicine. She had barely slept. Not because of fear. But because, for the first time, her truth was finally visible. You painted this during a night shift. The voice came from behind her. She turned. Her mother. No makeup. No blazer. Just Evelyn Quinn, in a sweater and jeans, looking smaller somehow. Ivy nodded. I see you. 3 a.m. We lost a patient. A 10-year-old girl. I went home, washed my hands. And painted until morning. Her mother stared at the canvas. Eyes scanning every brushstroke like it was a CT scan. Is that blood in the red layer? Ivy smiled faintly. Tears. The paint thinned with water and tears. Footsteps echoed again. Marcus approached, holding his phone, reading a notification. 40 million. They both looked at him. What? Her mother asked. That's what you've earned to date, he said, glancing at Ivy with something like reverence. 32 sold pieces, 4 museum acquisitions, 2 private commissions pending. Evelyn blinked. Why didn't you tell us? Because it wasn't about the money, Ivy said gently. It was about surviving the version of me you thought I had to be. Then, behind them, another voice. She sees what the rest of us don't. They turned to see Dr. Chen approaching. Coffee in one hand, gallery badge around her neck. When we worked that pediatric code last month, Chen said, looking at Evelyn, your daughter noticed a subtle skin pattern none of us did. Early anaphylaxis. No one else caught it. She saved that boy. She nodded toward the painting. This isn't a distraction. It's her edge. Evelyn looked at Ivy. Not like a child she was trying to mold, but like a woman she was trying to understand. And then, quietly, a voice no one expected. She always had good eyes. They turned. Charles Quinn stood before the painting, still in his pressed shirt, hands behind his back. Too observant, even as a child. Always asking questions, seeing what others missed. He took one slow step closer to the canvas. Studied it like it was a surgical case. His throat moved as he swallowed. We taught you to be a doctor, he said, voice thick. He looked at her. But you became more than that. Ivy's heart cracked open. She didn't speak. Couldn't. Her father's eyes glistened. And then, her mother reached out, fingers unsure, but brave. She took Ivy's hand. Teach me. Ivy blinked. Teach you? To paint. A soft laugh escaped her. Her voice trembled. You'll hate how messy it is. Evelyn smiled. I hated diapers too. But I learned. They stood there, all three of them, in front of the painting. For the first time in years, no one was performing. No one was pretending. No one was missing. In that moment, Ivy didn't feel split anymore. She was no longer either or. She was whole. The hospital lobby looked the same. White marble floors. Chrome railings. The constant hush of footsteps and distant monitor beeps. But something was different. Beneath the luminous canvas titled Healing Through Art, a piece once veiled in secrecy, now hung a small, engraved plaque. Dr. Ivy Quinn Aurora Knight. Physician. Artist. Healer. No alias. No mask. Just truth. In the weeks following her unveiling, Ivy had been offered interviews, podcasts, late-night talk shows. She turned down most of them. But she said yes to one thing. A new role. Director of the Integrative Art Medicine Initiative at St. Grace. She now walked the halls not just as a doctor, but as someone who challenged the system from within. A mentor to interns who sketched their patients to understand their pain. A guide to surgeons who learned color theory to ease their burnout. A bridge between logic and emotion. Science and soul. One day, a reporter followed her through the pediatric wing, notepad in hand. So, he asked with a wry smile, are you a doctor or an artist? Ivy stopped walking. Turned to him. Smiled, not with defense, but with certainty. I'm someone who refuses to be defined by other people's limits. That night, the city hummed beneath her window, full of sirens and jazz and life. Ivy stepped into her studio, barefoot, her white coat hanging on the back of the door. The canvas in front of her was blank. But this time, there was no fear. No disguise. She dipped her brush in deep red, then blue. Colors of heart and shadow. And on the corner of the page, she didn't sign Aurora Knight. She signed Ivy Quinn. We spend so much of our lives trying to fit into shapes we were never meant to fill. We silence parts of ourselves to make others comfortable. We bury dreams beneath duty. We wear names that aren't our own. And sometimes, without realizing it, we become strangers inside our own skin. But every now and then, someone dares to ask, what if I didn't have to choose? What if I could be both fierce and fragile, both healer and creator, both rational and reckless? Ivy Quinn did not defy her destiny. She redesigned it. She didn't run from the expectations placed upon her. She stood inside them and carved out space for her truth to live. Her story is not just about art, or medicine, or masks. It's about the quiet, radical act of choosing yourself. Every day, in every room, even when no one claps for you. Because here's the truth. No one, not your parents, not society, not the world, has the right to define you. Only you do. You are not meant to choose between your passion and your purpose. Sometimes, the miracle is born in their meeting. And success. True success. It's not applause. It's not a title. It's waking up each morning knowing you're finally living a life that belongs fully, fiercely, unapologetically to you. So pick up the brush. Step into the light. And sign your name. Not the name they gave you. The one that sets you free.